Welcome back, everybody, to the Fighting for Freedom podcast. I just want to say thank you to everybody for all your love and support. You guys have helped this channel grow dramatically. If you could please, at this time, drop us a like, comment, subscribe, share our podcast, turn on those bell notifications, and leave us a rating and good review. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Fighting for freedom, one podcast at a time.
What up, what up? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode on the pod. Martin, what's up, brother, man? How you doing today?
It's good. I've enjoyed the conversation. We've been talking for, 30 minutes, and we finally just like, hey, man, we should hit record on this. But
yeah.
But that's the best conversations, right? Just kind of impromptu. And
all the content that we could have had, we would have had the podcast and then some done already, but we decided let's just shoot the shit for a little bit because everyone's got to start somewhere, right? Like people are different in their own ways, so you have to learn from everybody. Everybody has something to offer. I always say this: there's a reason why God gave us one mouth and two ears, because sometimes you just got to shut the fuck up and listen, right? So no, it was good to finally catch up and ask some questions and get to know each other on a podcasting level, because you have your own podcast, right? Passing the torch.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that in a little bit. That's kind of how we found each other, right? You found me through social media because someone taught me how to do algorithms, and yeah, it is what it is. But Martin, so you're currently in the military, but where did you grow up? How did you end up in the military?
It's a great question. So my dad was in the military. He was in the Army, and he was stationed in Germany. Met my mom. Eventually got and he's from Virginia.
Okay.
So, and then he got assigned to Fort Sill, Lawton, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And that just happened to be where I was born, because he was stationed there, and then he retired out of there. So I grew up in Oklahoma, not because our family had roots there. It was that just happened to be where my mom and dad were stationed. And my mom, of course, is German. But grew up in a military town. Fort Sill is one of the biggest Army posts, I think, in the Army. So just really been around Army my whole life. And I was in college. I joined because of 9/11. I enlisted a couple of days after 9/11, so that's why I joined. And here we are, over 21 years later. And I enlisted on September 13th of 2011, but because so many people had enlisted during that time, I was in the delayed entry program for over a year, and I didn't leave until November of 2002. So I had plenty of chances to back out, but I still felt compelled to serve, and which is why I'm still here at 21 years. But the main reason why I keep serving, so that's why I joined, but I keep serving because of the people. I've met so many amazing people during my career. I love it.
Yes.
And yeah, that's why I'm still fighting. I'm still kicking. I'm still screaming. I still get fired up and passionate about a lot of things, but because of the people.
I love it. Still fighting for freedom.
Yeah, fighting for freedom. That's right, man. I should have threw that in there. I didn't think about that.
I got you, man. I got you. So speaking of the people, do you have, everyone has those people that as they're in the military, every duty station, I guess you could say, you meet that one person or that two or three people that you just click with, and you learn some great information from these people. And the one cool thing is, so I'm from New York, right? New York is a huge melting pot where there's so many different races and religions, and it's beautiful. Kind of like the military. I would have never have thought I would hang out with someone from Alabama or someone from Alaska. Have you met any people like that, and great experiences you can take away from those?
Yeah, so I'm lucky. I've had some great friends of mine that I've been friends for over 20 years or close to 20 years, all because of the military. One guy, he's born and raised in LA. And me being from Oklahoma and him being from LA, how would we have ever crossed paths, right?
No, never.
Another one, my dearest friends, I call him my brother, but same thing. He's from Las Vegas. and he grew up in Vegas, and he used to work at a hotel before he joined the military at a casino.
Yeah.
And another one of my close friends, he's from outside of Cleveland. And I mean, when I say, as a matter of fact, two of those friends, and I do live in Ohio, they flew to, and they're stationed, one's actually stationed in Maryland right now, and the other one's stationed in Colorado, but they flew to Ohio back in March to meet up with me so we could do a guys trip. And we went up to Columbus for a weekend to the Arnold Classic, which is the big, I don't know if you follow like bodybuilding and all, but it's a big time, physique, event and all that. But anyway, just stuff like that, like friends that I met because of the military from different parts of the U.S., but we've just developed this bond. And I was stationed with them at different intervals of my career.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, but yeah, there's been so many people that I've met, so many inside jokes and stories that I probably shouldn't say on camera.
No, you're good. You're good.
But it's a brotherhood for sure.
Yeah, those are meant for like maybe a campfire, couple cases 100%. Of Natty Light.
Yeah, Natty Light, of course, right? Yeah, Natty Light. Yeah.
So like now I'm curious, what would be your beer of choice?
Man, it's weird. Like I'm about to be 42. Actually, I don't drink beer as much as I used to.
Okay.
Man, I guess if I do, but I there's where I live in Ohio, there's a lot of like local breweries. Mm-hmm. So there's one called Gamma Bomb that I do like.
Okay,
it's an IPA, so I know IPAs like a lot of people get made fun.
Nope, I'm an IPA guy.
Yeah, so
I like it all day.
So that it's on a Friday or something, I'll stop by and I'll pick up one or two sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, there's it's a local brewery here that I like, but that's probably as far as like Miller Lite, Bud Light, Coors Light, don't really drink, and not for any reason. It's just I've just never really been.
Unless you're at like a sporting event, because then you're like, well, these are $16 and an IPA is $49, so I guess I'll just get a Miller Lite.
Yeah. So that's probably that's exactly. And I do love sports. I go to a lot of games and stuff, but but the Gamma Bomb would be my beer of choice.
Okay, all right. So let's backtrack a little bit. So you enlisted, and then you were in holding for basically a year. I got to give you credit because I was in like the DEP program, like holding for like 3 months. And I was just like, I don't know if I should do this, like, and I bet that goes through a lot of people's minds where they're like, I can still back out maybe. But then the recruiters are like, nah, you can't. You already signed a piece of paper and you already walked in the office. So it's a commitment. And I'm like, whatever. But when you finally leave for boot camp, and you get to boot camp day one, what's going through Martin's mind?
It was weird. So I remember November 19th was my first day at boot camp in 2002. And I had just gotten married. I'd only been married for about 2 months. And I had just turned 21.
Oh.
Yeah. So I remember thinking like, what did I get myself into? And I want to leave now. And there were people, I think we started out with like 90 people and and I don't know what,
that's a small number.
Yeah, but I think we ended up like with maybe 55 that graduated, and it's not because of the rigorous physical training or anything like that. It was just the mentality, like people just like, hey, this wasn't for them. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I can remember specifically on, I think at the time basic training was 45 days, and I can remember on day 3 I was thinking like, oh my god, 6 weeks left, and that's just an eternity, right?
Yep.
What's going through my mind, and I remember getting yelled at and all these different things. But yeah, what's going through my mind, it was like I wanted to quit so many times, but but I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. And so I didn't have a plan. So I don't know. And if I had to go back, I don't know if I had to go back if I could do it, but I just didn't have any other plans. So I was like, I have to get through this, because before that I was waiting table. I was working 3 jobs before I joined the military.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, and I was working at Radio Shack during the day.
And then Blockbuster and Toys R Us.
But Radio Shack was going out of business back then, right? But it was good money. I will say I made some. It was sales, so I did that, and I also waited tables between 2 different restaurants. One being Outback. So I waited tables at Outback at nighttime.
I love
gained
Outback.
About 10 pounds because so waited tables. So I would basically work from like 9 to 4, 9 to 5, and then I would wait tables from like 5 to 10 or 6 to
Mhm.
11 or something like that at night. And then I would deliver papers, not like the riding around on the bike, but like if you go to a diner and they have it was Oklahoma Daily, as a matter of fact, is like each state has like their own
Yeah.
certain paper or whatever
Mhm.
that you go to, like it would be at supermarkets and stuff like that. So I did that from basically about 2:00 in the morning to about 5:00 in the morning every single day.
Damn.
And
Definitely a hustler.
It was, and I was, young, but I wasn't sleeping. And I remember I used to have wads of cash. I didn't have a debit card, and I was probably making about $3,000 a month. And this is in 2002.
Yeah.
Or 2001 through 2002.
Yeah.
Like, with inflation, that's like $150,000. I'm joking. Today's, no. But yeah, just making money. But I just knew that wasn't sustainable, and so those are the things that went through my mind.
You're like, I'm not going to get a pension through the diner and Radio Shack. Well,
No.
Hey, listen, good thing you left Radio Shack, because I don't know if you know, but there's not one in the world anymore. Those things are gone.
I didn't know they officially closed down. I would still see some like periodically at random places, but I didn't realize it's been so long, but they were going out of business for like 30 years, I feel like.
Yeah. It was always one of those stores that was like going out of business, 20% off. I'm like,
yeah,
if you're going out of business, you think 20% off is going to make me come in here? But it did. Because when I was a kid, we used to go to Radio Shack all the time. Because, Dad, I don't know if you listen. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. But we used to have, like, the police scanners, because they would sell those there, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
It was so fun. It was so fun going in there.
Yeah. But I'm glad I did all those things and experienced all that, because it's helped me so much in life and in the military, because all the different people that I met, good and bad, right? I had to learn how to deal with different like personalities and complaints and stressful tempos and all times and all that. So it was good for me.
But boot camp now, Air Force boot camp now, compared to when you went through, completely different.
Yeah,
it's probably completely different. No,
I say even for all the military, because I think there's more an emphasis now on different types. Like I felt like in the past it was more just about physical readiness. Now it's about emotional and spiritual and mental readiness. And I think, at least for the Air Force, I think there's more of an approach of cognitive like development, right? Like just a lot of different adapting, right? I mean, we have to adapt as humans, and so I think all services have taken that approach over time. Definitely my so my stepdad, who I was very close with as well growing up, he's also retired Army, but he fought in Vietnam. And so even talking about his boot camp stories compared to mine, completely different experience.
Hey, we got to get him on the pod.
yeah, for sure.
So you finish boot camp, and then you go to your first duty station. Where do you end up?
I like to throw this out there. I was in basic training for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And I graduated, I think, on January 4th of 2003 is when I graduated, or I think when I left for boot camp. But I was a huge college football fan at the time, and I missed Ohio State, Miami, considered one of the greatest games of all time. But I ended up going straight from basic training to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, for some training out in Sierra Vista, Arizona, and did that for about 7 months. And then at the second part of my school, I went to Pensacola, Florida at Corey NAS. So I got to hang out in Pensacola for about 5 months. I was in tech school for exactly a year.
Okay.
And then my first duty assignment was I was in Misawa, Japan.
Nice.
One of the best experiences of my life, and I was stationed there for 5 years.
Nice. I worked with some Air Force dudes in Kadena in Okinawa, Japan.
Nice, yeah.
And they were, because my job's a plumber. So, like, we do vertical construction. So whenever I got to go work with the Air Force cats, it was nice because they would do HVAC and plumbing, but like on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
So it was cool to like not have to, put rocks under things to make them level. It was cool to actually have the tools and capabilities to like, do the big scale stuff. I remember we did this one project where they had a firehouse, and the firehouse like didn't have air condition. And you got to think, it's Okinawa, Japan. It's 112 degrees on Christmas Day, so I got to, take this huge chiller and huge HVAC system and put it on their roof and actually install it. And these firefighters, because most of them are Navy and Air Force, and then also civilians who work there and help run it. So it was just really cool to actually do something like that, and then also get away from the Navy for a little bit and get to feel like I'm in the Air Force. I'm like, ooh, 2-hour lunches?
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah. Where's my steak? Where's my steak and lobster?
Yeah, well, we did get to go to the galley there too, and their galley was way better than ours.
Yeah.
Because they had 3 different ones, and they were like, what do you want to eat today? I'm like, what do you mean, what do I want to eat today? And they're like, do you want to go to the big galley where they have everything, or do you want to go to the small? I'm like, you have options? I'm like, I got whatever the guy puts on my tray. It was great though. It was a great experience.
Yeah, I will say I deployed with the Army twice, and I was with them for about a total of 14 months. And going to their chow hall, that was one thing they got right. I mean, they were, it was a feast. Yeah,
they got to eat.
Good.
They got to eat,
man.
They're big boys.
Mm-hmm.
They're big boys. So MREs, right? Now I'm curious. I ask everybody this: what's your favorite MRE?
Man, it's been so long since I've had one.
Really?
Yeah, I think the last one I had one. The last time I had one was in November of 2013.
Shit.
Yeah, I remember that because I was actually at an Army. I was deployed with the Army, and there was a big rainstorm, and the camp flooded. So our barracks were were flooded up to the knee water. Damn. Right? So everything was ruined, all the food, and it shut down everything down for maybe 4 or 5 days, to include the defect. So we had MREs. I'd be honest, I've never had one MRE that I liked. I only just ate the brownie or the sweets that came with it.
Yeah, you gotta eat the sides.
Yeah, so I've never I think if I had to, probably the chili mac or something. If I had to really shove one down, or if I was on a deserted or stranded island or something, and now I can only have one, it'd be something like that.
I bet there's a lot of people that are listening that are have been in for that the same time as you, and they're like, bro, I had one 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Or there's some E3 who's listening, and he's like, but chili mac is probably the top tier, probably the top choice.
Yeah.
But I don't get why. So me personally, I don't like the chili mac one. I like the little Twizzler things that come with them. I'm not a big candy guy. I'm not a big sweets guy. But the little Twizzlers that come with them are definitely a good bargaining chip.
Yeah, I think that's definitely when I've done when I've been around. I've just chosen not to eat when the only option was an MRE. I probably sound bougie right now, but I don't know. I think if I had to, I could But I feel like now there's been so many improved new ones and everything. So.
Yeah. Probably if you were to get one now, it would probably be one that was issued the day you joined the Air Force, because the expiration date on those are older than water. So I think you'll be all right.
Yeah.
So this is a big thing for a lot of people that join the military. When you finish your first enlistment, what persuaded you or what made you want to stay in the military?
Man, that's a great question. I think it was in November of 2008, right? So I enlisted for 6 years initially.
Okay.
And man, at that time I had re-enlisted because I was having a great time at that point in my career. But yeah, just because I didn't have any other plans, and I wasn't sure. And I was still, I think at that point I was 28, maybe 28 years old. Yeah, I was having a good time. I was stationed overseas and traveling and just loving life. So I think I didn't have anything else lined up, and that's why I enlisted. And at that point I had re-enlisted for another 4 years.
Okay. When you re-enlisted, did you get kind of a Gucci set of orders, we would call it?
No, I went to Vandenberg, California. Which, the base itself, it's not in the best location. The local area, it's okay, right? But the thing I loved about it, and I hated my job during that time. So I actually thought about getting out at my 10-year mark. I was so close. Obviously I re-enlisted and, happily ever after, whatever. But I was miserable during that time. But the one thing I loved about that assignment, I did make some great friends during that assignment. Hated the job. A lot of not the best examples of, it's actually helped me later on how there were a lot of bad examples I saw on how to how to lead people and everything. So it helped me later on, right? But the thing I loved about that assignment is it's in Santa Maria, Lompoc, California. So you're 3 hours from LA, a couple hours from San Francisco, like an hour from San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara. So location wise, it was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So every weekend, I mean, there's beaches, there's wineries. If you don't mind driving, there's so many things to do in that area. So that's why it was great.
Yeah, it's nice to not have seasons either.
Yeah, it was like 75 degrees year round. Like there's a lot of fog, but it was very mild. Never got to. I remember one time it got up to like 90 or something, and we were at the beach, and people were like acting like it was like we're in Death Valley or something. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's like because I was in Cali for 5 years, right? And I remember, it's
what base or what port?
Ventura Naval Base.
Okay, yeah. So we used to drive through Ventura all the time, going to LA. As a matter of fact, there was a Chick-fil-A on the that might have been in Oxnard, but we used to always drive to Oxnard out of our way just to go eat at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. I've definitely been there at Chick-fil-A multiple times. And if you pull up in uniform to any Chick-fil-A, they give you like 10 or 20% off.
Oh,
but
nice.
if you're not in uniform, they don't give it to you. I'm like, well, that don't make sense. But you know how uncomfortable this thing is after wearing it for like a whole day. Like I don't want to wear it just for $4 off my meal. But anyway, yeah. So I was in Ventura, right? And it was like, December, January timeframe. And back home, there's snow on the ground. It's cold outside. And I'm sitting on the beach and my family's like, what are you doing? We're on the beach. It's hot out. It's 87 degrees and the sun's shining.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I did love about California, how I didn't have to deal with shoveling my car out. I didn't have to deal with, the rain and adding to the traffic because traffic was just miserable to begin with.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, man. It was it was a good time in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you're in California. I'm assuming that's when like you meet your best friend, right? Your buddy who's from California?
No, we were actually stationed together in Japan.
Oh, okay. Did he get to go back to California too, or no?
No, he did, but he was at a different base. He was at Beale, which is closer to Sacramento, I think. I've never been stationed there, but
oh, okay.
No, we were stationed together in Japan for about. I didn't meet him till after I was there for maybe like a year or two. And then we were stationed there for like I think 3 years in total, and then we were stationed together again. I've been stationed in Ohio twice.
Oh,
yeah. So the first one, I like it here, man. It's a good spot. Like I truly do. Like it's, you'd be surprised, man. It's so Dayton specifically, but I like it here, man. It's a good spot for sure. Yeah, but anyway, just with the guy, my friend from California, we were stationed together twice, and yeah.
So I just did a podcast. Not too long ago. I think I released it like September 1st or something like that.
Yeah.
With a lieutenant in the Air Force. And she was from, she's stationed in Colorado, but she lived in Ohio. Like that's where she went to school or whatever. And you probably know what question I'm going to ask you. Skyline Chili. Do you eat it or no?
Hell no, man. Dude, I cannot stand. And I did watch your episode with that LT.
Did?
Yeah, so shout out to her. Great episode.
Cool people, man.
Yeah, and bravo to her as well, because her content, man, she's really putting in the work, and she's her followers and all that. So I think Lanai's Life or something, right? I don't recall her name, but excuse me. Yeah. So my apologies, but yeah,
I got it wrong all the time. She had to correct me, and I was like, I'm sorry. She was like, "No, it's good."
Congrats to you. It's impressive just to see your growth, and I'm clapping for you. So bravo.
She definitely helped me out too, because the same way that me and you had a conversation prior to me pressing record was the same with me and her. Like I was like, hey, like how the hell do you work this stuff? Like I don't know. So she definitely helped out, and that's like one of the biggest things for me doing this podcast is not only like it gives me like the ambition and the goal to like set my mind to something and actually do it. But it gives me like the the relationships and the outreach to people just to learn. It's
100%.
It's great.
But no, I'm not a fan of Skyline Chili, and You know, it's a big thing here in Ohio, but it's really the people that are pretty much in Dayton and Cincinnati. Like that's really
Okay.
so. I think people assume that's all over. I think that the restaurant itself, I think, is probably all over Ohio. But the passionate hardcore fans are like in the Dayton and Cincinnati area. I don't get it, man. And it's a contentious point here. Like people get upset. Like when you
Really?
say like when you talk to people from Ohio and you're like, I'm not feeling it, man. I don't understand a pound of noodles with a pound of chili and a pound of cheese. And then people say, well, they put they put cinnamon in it. Sorry, my wife is texting me.
No, you're good.
Yeah, people put that, they put cinnamon or cocoa powder in the chili. Like, I don't want cinnamon in chili. And
Yeah.
not a fan. It's a hard no. I know we're not supposed to talk about a lot of controversial things in today's society, but Skyline Chili is just something people have to know my stance on that, man. Like, it's not a fan for that for sure.
Yeah.
And, if that's polarizing, I'm sorry, but a man has a code.
I love it. Yeah. And if you're from California and you think In-N-Out is top tier, just know that your French fries taste like cardboard and they're absolutely trash. Okay.
So I do like In-N-Out, and where I'm from in Oklahoma, Whataburger is a big thing, and Whataburger's good. I've heard people say that about In-N-Out, and I don't like their fries, but I think but I don't go there for their fries, right? I go there for their. I'm not gonna say what I go like which burger specifically.
You go there for the chicken sandwich.
Yeah, I go there for the chicken sandwich, but I don't want to say the actual. We'll just call it a single, right? Because if I say the true number, it'll show everyone like what a fat kid I am. If I say,
that's okay.
I go there for the 6x6.
You get a 6x6?
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
I didn't even know that. Yeah. I'm definitely a 3x3 guy. And I was gonna ask you for your order.
The real ones know, like the real, the real. G's.
Yeah. Let me get a protein style with a bun.
Gotta watch the calories. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll watch them go from the paper to my mouth.
Yeah. But that's a hot thing too. In-N-Out versus Whataburger. It's almost like the Bloods and the Crips. Maybe cut that out. I don't want to get stir anything, but
no, you're good. One prefers Five Guys, the other prefers In-N-Out.
Five Guys is good, but it's so expensive, man.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's good, but I'm paying a gourmet burger. Like it's $30. I feel like for one person almost.
Yeah, but the quality is definitely up there. And I did see some so Five Guys, they do like their marketing strategy where the reason why they give you so many fries is because people like that. Right? So that's why you'll go there and spend that money on a burger, because when you look into your bag, you pull out your burger and you're like, okay, great, this is quality burger. You put it down, but you look in the bag and not only is like your cup full of French fries, but there's French fries all over the bag. It's one of those marketing strategies that just makes you keep coming back.
It's about Five Guys?
Yeah, Five Guys.
You know what? I'm going to go there for lunch today, so...
Okay, so just know, you can order, like the smallest French fry possible.
Yeah.
And it'll end up being, a bunch of fries. You don't need to get the large. You can get the smallest one.
It's a life hack.
Yeah, definitely. But, yeah, I was, reading something, and they were like, yeah, dude, we just give people free peanuts and extra French fries, and they keep coming back. And I'm like, oh, okay.
This is why our forefathers have fought for freedom, right? So this is why we continue to fight for freedom.
Yeah.
So we can get more French fries and peanuts.
Hey, I ain't mad about it. As long as you hit your workout in the morning, whatever you do throughout the whole day, that's all up to you.
It's good.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad we did a nice and early pod, because I still got the pre-workout running through me.
Okay, yeah, man.
Yeah, I had to get a quick little pump.
Yeah,
all right. So you end up re-enlisting, and you go to California. You live your life there to the fullest. Where do you end up going after that? Because now you're probably almost at 2010 range, right?
Yeah, so exactly.
A little past that?
Actually, December 2011 is when I PCS from California to Ohio. And then I was stationed here the first time for 4 years. But during that 4 years, I was deployed I was in Kuwait for 14 months.
Oh,
so I count that as an assignment too, because it's 14 months of my life.
Yeah.
And away from family and all that. And I've heard people say, well, Kuwait's a cush deployment. Cool, got it, but I'm still away from my family and my daughter, right? It doesn't make it any easier.
Yep.
So I count that as an assignment. And then came back to Ohio, left in January 2016, January 15th of 2016 to be exact. And from there, I went to Hawaii, and I was stationed in Hawaii.
Oh,
Yeah, for about 4.5 years. I got extended there because of COVID, and yeah,
yeah,
but
me too.
yeah,
I was one of those deployment babies where we were on deployment, about to come home like in April, and when March is when everything hit,
yeah,
and they were like, "Put a mask on and unpack your shit," and I was like, "What do you mean?"
yeah,
And they were like, "Yeah, you're not leaving anytime soon," and they just kept pushing the time frame. They were like, "All right, in a month, in 2 months."
yeah,
2 more months. And next thing you know, my 6 month deployment turned into a 12-month deployment.
yeah.
And it was just like,
So I was supposed to leave in March, but then ended up leaving until July,
yep.
and then I came back to Ohio, and I've lived here for actually 3 years. It was 3 years last month.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
Okay. All right. So, kind of to segue out of the military aspect, right? I'm
yeah.
very intrigued in me and you having kind of the same goals and same ambitions. So, passing the torch podcast, how did you start this? Why did you start this?
Man, I've always had. Not really sure where word begins, so I'll try to summarize it as best possible.
That's a big word.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in the Air Force. I learned it at the Air Force DFAC,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was on the
I
back of
learned
my
it from
cereal box.
Yeah, they don't put yeah, the back of cereal box. Like, if only MREs had the word of the day on the back of the
Or like a joke. Yeah,
a
that'd be
joke.
good.
Yeah,
That'd be good.
I never felt like I fit in growing up, just because in Oklahoma, my family, we were transplants. We weren't like from there, so we didn't have a whole lot of. But we built a strong network of friends. But
Mm-hmm.
even since when I've joined the military, I've always been maybe not the loudest voice in the room, but definitely a voice that's heard, very vocal. Um, I've had some times where I've been brash and it's blowing up in my face, but I've learned over the years it's true to who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned how to be more civil and diplomatic, and the art of communicating and influence in that. But I had some bad experiences with some great experiences with leaders early on in my career, but some bad experiences too. I knew at a certain point that I was probably going to, retire from the military. If I was going to stay in the military, I needed to be do the best I can to develop myself in order to help out other people. And I started really just focused on. I was really having there was a 7-year period where I was having a real rough time, back-to-back assignments. And I didn't have a mentor or anyone I felt like that I could look up to or aspire to be. So then I just looked at how can I make myself better? And but I wanted to help people. So that's really kind of like the genesis of my podcast was how can I be, if I can't control everything, how can I help shape those within my sphere of influence?
Mm-hmm.
So when I moved to Hawaii, I realized people from Ohio, from the past assignment at that point, were reaching out to me like a year or two after me being there, like, hey, I need some advice on this or that. So I started thinking like, man, and I'd already previously had a sports podcast. So I shifted from a sports podcast and really created a mentorship podcast. And that's really what started it, just because it was a way for me to connect with people. And I realized mentorship, in the past, I think a lot of people think of mentorship, it has to be, there's so many times where a great conversation happens, but it's not recorded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, you look up to someone as a mentor, but once they get stationed somewhere else, you really don't have access to them anymore. So that's why I started the podcast. Is I look at it as mentorship on demand. And, even if like you and I are having a great conversation and 2 years from now, I'm like, oh man, I really liked what Martin said. Now you can go back and look at that, listen to that conversation again.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I just realized the scope and that people can have with podcasting and all that. So that's really why I started it. And, I wanted to really, the purpose of my podcast is to build a connection with people and a long-term connection with people. Podcasting, I think, allows that. So that's kind of the shorter reason why I started. And it's just something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where, I started it kind of like as a hobby, right? You have an idea and you just sometimes fall through with them. But this one I didn't want to. But honestly, I've had nothing but fun doing this the entire time.
Yeah,
It's helped me you know, speak to veterans and speak to people who are active duty and kind of let them know, like, you know, because mental health is a big thing in
Yeah,
the military. I am a big advocate for mental health. I try to help people as much as I can, but it's kind of hard to do that, right? So one of the outlooks that I thought of was using a podcast platform as an outlook for people. So yes, I'm speaking to you right now, but in the eyes of, you know, the greater scheme of things, we're speaking to so many other people who are listening.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and there was people who made fun of me, and I started my podcast in January of 2018, and there were people making fun of me, like people who at the time, I'm no longer associated with a lot of those people, but you know, people that were my friends at the time for that season, they were making fun of me, and but I was like, man, I'm trying to do something positive, but
Yep.
yeah, and it also just realized I realized this is kind of like what you said, like people can come back and listen to it, and it just because if you're having a one-on-one conversation with someone in person, it's just between you and that person, but there's other people who could probably benefit from those lessons. And I felt like I was being my best self when I was doing this, or when I am doing the podcast. So yeah, that's why I've kept it going all these years.
Yeah, nice. No, I definitely tuned in. That's kind of like how we connected, right?
Yeah.
I know we brought this up prior, but I was looking into some of yours, and you interview some crazy different, you know, ranks and different people. I'm kind of curious. Maybe I worded that one a little weird, but you kind of get the gist of it,
Yeah.
right? So, what have been, or who have been your most memorable interviews, and what are your most gainful experiences or gainful advice that you've got from these people?
Man, I say I'll answer the second question first. My gainful advice is there's been so many different ones, but probably just it's awesome to see, it's a reminder to be your authentic self. Because maybe in this, like in a room at work or in an office, I may be an outcast because that's just who's in that area right then and there. My podcast has allowed me to connect with other like-minded people. So it's kind of like the Spider-Man meme. It's like, oh, I'm not alone, or like, you know, there's more of us, right?
Yep.
So that's been the most gainful, to be authentic to yourself, and 'cause that's when people, I think, are at their best, you know. And I've seen a lot of fake people, even other people, and I've been following podcasts for probably since 2010. That's when I started listening to podcasts, and you know, I think you see a lot of fake people during that time. But as far as like, what was the first question? Like, what kind of guests have I had?
Yeah, like who was your most like memorable guest?
Man,
like,
I've had some. I'm proud of the guests that I've had as well.
Yeah, you got some.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and if I leave anyone off, please forgive me. But I'm the first is I'm going to say my very first episode was General John Jumper. He was a former chief of staff of the Air Force. I didn't even have a name for my podcast then. I came up with the idea of my podcast at New Year's Eve, 2017, so 31 December 2017. I was like, hey, I was, you know, going to start this podcast, and then like a week later, I had John Jumper as my very first guest, and again, I didn't even have a name for it, right? But so he was a big one, and then another one was, you know, Khalith Wright. He was he was the chief master in the Air Force at the time. And that was a big one because he had done other podcasts, and this is in April of 2018, but he hadn't done personal podcasts. He would be like an organization had a podcast, but not like an individual, like what we see now. So, because there was other people like, well, he was on my podcast. Like, no, he was on your organization's podcast. There's a difference. And you guys were asking him like, what's your thoughts on uniforms? Great question, guys. Like where I was asking him stuff about, you know, his leadership philosophy and stuff like that. Super proud of that episode because he shared a story on there that he hadn't really, at the time, he hadn't really shared with a lot of people. So that was pretty cool. The first chief master in the Space Force, Chief Master Roger Choberman, he just retired. But that episode was like a month ago. Lee Ellis, he's the author of Leading with Honor. He's a Vietnam POW. I haven't released that one yet. That one's on the way.
Okay.
Celeste Headley, she is a communication. She's not in the military, and that's what I'm proud of too. Is my podcast is military and civilian people as well.
Okay.
Celeste Headley, she's an author. She had a TED Talk with like 30 million views.
Whoa. Okay.
So she's considered a communication expert. She's been on Oprah when Oprah was airing. She's been on so many different TV networks and shows. Trevor G. Blake, he's an entrepreneur. That was a podcast I think I did about a year and a half ago. Andrew Bustamante, he's a former Air Force officer and he works for the CIA.
Whoa,
it's crazy.
That sounds like a great movie.
Yeah, I don't have. There's no video over that one, but I have it audio. I'm really proud of that episode.
Yeah, no, definitely. How do you get these?
Man, I get asked that question a lot. I don't know, man. People ask me like, Foster, like, how do you get this? I'm like, I don't know. It's so weird. I just do, right?
Yeah, you have to get out of your comfort zone and just like that's the biggest thing. Is just ask, you know.
Yeah.
And like the one thing I've learned in the military is like you're never gonna get anything if you don't ask for it.
Yeah.
Right. If you just sit there in a corner and be quiet, that's the way you're gonna get treated. But if you ask questions, even if it's a dumb question, you're gonna get an answer. It might not be the answer you want, might not be an answer you like, or maybe it will be. You know, that's the same thing how I've had guests on my podcast where I just reach out. I'm like, hey, like, my name's Vinny. You know, on the weekends I like to do a podcast. Do you want to be my guest? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then I'm like, I go tell my wife, I'm like, you'll never believe who's gonna, you know. And she's like, yeah, that's great.
You probably told like, you'll never believe Martin Foster's gonna be on my podcast. I'm joking, but
yeah, I got pictures of you on my wall actually right now. Yeah,
6x6. The
little Walgreens special.
The Walgreens special. But yeah, just putting yourself. I may reach out to 100 people and 2 people say yes.
Yeah.
But also the biggest thing though is I'm constantly listening to other podcasts, and not just in like leadership or military, but all sorts of, industries or sectors of life. I'm also into like real estate. I'm also into weightlifting. So I listen to a lot of podcasts like that as well. But I'm a student of the game. I read a lot of books so that when I am presented with an opportunity, I'm ready to go.
Oh, nice.
So,
okay, good.
Yeah, and I'm constantly researching like how to ask better questions, but that's really it. So when I always kind of have an idea where if I were to, if I'm going to talk to someone, I already know kind of like what questions I can ask that. So for example, I went to a conference back in August. It was a big professional development conference for the Air Force back in early August of this year. Another episode I'm proud of was with a guy named Shane Pilgrim. It's such a fantastic episode. Basically, he's an entrepreneur, and he talks about life after the military and, finances and all that. But it ties into resilience, like a mental resilience and an emotional resilience. But anyway, I just met him, and then 2 hours later, or we did a podcast together. I'd met him maybe 2 hours before that. So when I did the interview, I had a couple questions like lined up. I did a quick like Google search and all that. But there were other questions I knew just off his background. Oh, I could ask him about this. I could ask him about that. But really just being a student of the game, how to have like constantly practicing and getting better, evolving with how to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, but how I get guests, man, it's just chance. It's hustling in a good way. Like it's like right now there's a book that I have, and I have about 100 guests in there, that ideal guests that I'm going to try to get over the next year or so. And if I were to have a conversation, if I ran into that person on the street, I already know what I would ask that person.
Oh, nice.
So it's just kind of So really when people say like, oh, not that anyone said this to me, but there are other people like across who are succeeding at life, right? And people are like, oh, they got lucky. No, I realize that now, like, maybe they get an opportunity was presented to them, but they were prepared to meet that opportunity. So that's the big, this long rambling is, how are you prepared to meet that opportunity? So there's opportunities when I'm around certain people that, like, I know, are you a football fan?
On Sundays.
Either way, but I've interviewed athletes, right? And so when I had a chance encounter with them, I already know, like, hey, I'm prepared for this opportunity. I put in the reps. I have the notes in my head or on my phone or whatever, that I can do an interview on the spot. And it's impromptu, but there's a lot of preparation that goes into that impromptu. But how I get the guests, man, There's no formula. It's just shooting my shot.
You're German. I was gonna say luck of the Irish, but
Look
not
at
even.
Irish, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I got to give you some credit that you have all of these amazing guests. You have all of this amazing knowledge because not only are you've been in the military a long time, you have all the experience, right? So you're able to offer a lot of things that I won't be able to offer. So for all of your podcasts, where would people listening be able to find Passing the Torch?
Yeah, Instagram, just at Torch Martin is a big thing, and I'm trying to do more things on Instagram, and I would love to get more followers there. On YouTube, so people just look for Passing the Torch Martin Foster. You'll see my YouTube channel,
Okay.
and then my website, passingthetorchpod.com, and then lastly, just on Facebook. I know there's a lot of different. I'm human. I work a lot of hours. I have a lot of responsibility. I'm also a husband. I'm a dad. There's things I have to do for my own personal health.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the best I can to create content, to put out content. On a side note, I want to go back real quick. You asked about guests. A lot of my friends are guests too, and that's another reason why I created this podcast. Is I don't want to eat alone. I want to be successful in life.
Yep.
But I don't want to eat alone. I want to build a bigger table so as many people as possible can enjoy the feast, so we can all eat together.
Yep.
Not sharing. I want us all to feast together. So that's another reason why I started the podcast, where I keep it going, is to give my friends an opportunity and platform as well. And that's been awesome. So I try to balance between military, civilians, and friends as guests. But people want to find me, passingthetorchpod.com, YouTube, Passing the Torch Martin Foster, Instagram at Torch Martin, and then Facebook, you can look me up, Martin Foster, or Passing the Torch on Facebook are probably the best things. I know there's I'm trying to do things on LinkedIn, there's Twitter, there's TikTok, there's all these other things, but I only have so much bandwidth, and so I just got to do the best I can.
We will get there eventually. I'll help you out as much I can from, as far away as we are. But you are right though, because when I first started this, as much as you don't want to interview your friends, right? You want to like outsource and talk to other people, to new people. It's very good to talk to your friends when you're first starting out because you know them.
Yeah.
You're comfortable with them. You're able to have a conversation. If you're not a very sociable person, this is not really I'm not gonna say it's not gonna work out for you, but it's definitely gonna be a bigger obstacle than you thought it was.
Yeah.
Meeting somebody for the first time, doing the little bit of information, like my computer right now is full of post-it notes about Martin Foster, of little snippets of little questions, and to take my accent and my way of talking and use it in like big boy terms for like a podcast, that it's nearly impossible. So if you don't have those types of skills and you haven't built up your confidence and your capabilities into podcasting, it's going to be hard. So I definitely started off with some of my friends, and definitely, integrated some people that I didn't know, people that I looked up to, people who kind of been my mentors during this whole actually on September 8th, September 8th, October 8th, I released a podcast with Hector Bravo. He was one of my biggest inspirations. He's got a big following. You can check him out on YouTube. It's That Prison Guard. He was prior Army. He got out of the Army. He went to go be a correctional officer in the state of California. He did that. And now he is one of those people who he's just a leader. He's a true inspiration. And he's living his dream and doing exactly, I guess, where me and you kind of want to end up,
Yeah.
But yeah, so no, that definitely cool to meet people and learn this. It's like a whole new thing. It's like we're homeschooling ourselves.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's a good comparison. Yeah,
Martin, I do want to ask you. Tell me about a time when you were in the military and you were like, you know what? I'm so glad I joined.
Man, that's there's definitely
it's gonna take your time. Take your time.
no, because there's so many. It's like the Slumdog Millionaire. Right?
Yeah.
If you've seen the movie,
Okay.
there's so many like Flash references. And,
Yep.
I don't know why. What just popped into my mind was when I reenlisted for the first time. I had a 05, a lieutenant colonel doing my reenlistment, and I think I was an E4, about to put on E5, maybe like a month or two later. But he gifted me a like a pocket version of the U.S. Constitution.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. That's just something that stuck with me, and it's just kind of, or every time I go back to Oklahoma on leave, I've been in for over 21 years, and there's still people working at the same spot. And as a matter of fact, earlier this year, back in July, I was in Oklahoma, and there was a guy that I used to work with. He was, and he's older than me too, but he was a checker at a big time store, and not to knock that that profession, but he was one of the people that was telling me I was making a mistake joining the military back when I enlisted back in 2001.
Yeah,
and I saw, and every time I go home on leave, like every year or every 2 years or whatever it was, I do cross paths with this guy. And every time, and I remember back in July when I was with him, I was with my wife. This guy he was making fun of me and, kept like taking like shots at me, right? Like trying to insult me, but make it seem like he was playing. And I didn't say anything. And I was, when I got in the car with my wife was talking about how she was proud of me just because she realized that was probably the highlight of that. I could have easily verbally destroyed this guy, but like, why would I do that? There's no point to it, right? And it's just wrong. But anyway, but that guy, him putting me down is probably because like he's probably mad at his own life, the fact that he grew up like he's 45. He's never lived anywhere else except for that town in Oklahoma. Again, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
if that's what makes you happy. But this was someone who was talking to me about making bad decisions in life when I was 20 or 21 whenever I joined. But yeah, just it was a realization that I'm glad I joined, and I was scared to join too about leaving my town, but I feel like it was the best thing for my growth. So long answer to your short question, the Constitution. And then back in July when I realized that I'm glad I joined because I'd hate to be that person that didn't join and have a life full of regrets, and to be that basically a hater where anytime I saw someone who did succeed, I feel like I have to make fun of them or anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I'm glad I joined because of those reasons. I've grown a lot.
Yeah, the military not only gets you physically stronger, but 100% mentally stronger.
Yeah.
You got to deal with, the good and the bad that comes with it.
Yeah.
Now, not to segue into good or bad, but I am curious if you can shed some light on any resources that you have used in the military that have helped you, i.e. A VA loan, TA, mental health, anything like that.
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, so TA, going, taking college classes, it's free money to go to school, as long as it's under a certain cap, right?
Yeah.
The VA, I bought a house, I used the VA home loan, and the biggest resource I'd say is probably just the people, right? It's very tough, and that's something I struggled with for a long time, especially as a male. It's very tough for us to ask for help when we need help. But you'd be surprised in the military, like even for someone who you don't necessarily get along with, in your time of need, if you truly need help, your coworkers, your friends, your unit, hopefully, there's some bad cases too, but I think to me that's a resource that deserves to be highlighted.
Yep.
Is just the people themselves. Mental health has been great. Just having someone sometimes just talking about, just venting your problems to a trained professional. It's such a good feeling. It's like, I feel better now. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, some other resources. The USO, I think, is a resource I tell people to use all the time, just because they offer so many things for the military, and I would hate for that to stop. So the USO has been amazing too. And then lastly, the Air Force Sergeants Association. They do so much just for the enlisted force, at least in the Air Force, that they deserve to be highlighted and recognized constantly.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if the Navy has something like, kind of like the same as that. I don't know, like, what the Sergeant's Academy, like, kind of really does to kind of relate to the Navy. But, I mean, even the MWR, right? The MWR.
Yeah, MWR, right? Yeah,
MWR
exactly.
That's all out there, too.
100%.
What would Martin tell E3 Martin? Martin today, tell E3 Martin.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I was definitely someone, and I'm still guilty of it from time to time, but I've gotten so much better. I got to give myself credit.
Yeah.
Is just focus on what you can control. Focus on, you could be undesirable, but become so good that you're undeniable.
Wow. I like that.
That's what I would tell myself.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of people, like, even in the future or talking about the past, there's a lot of things that people like, damn, like I should have done this or I should have done that. Whether it's, wealth options in, investments or property investments, or it's just,
those are easy answers. Everyone always says Yahoo or Google or Apple, whatever,
yeah,
or Tesla or whatever.
I should have bought Bitcoin. Yeah.
And I want to go a different route. So
no, I appreciate it. That was,
yeah.
I'll take it. Yeah. I probably would have said buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. I'm a New Yorker. Pizza's getting expensive now. You can't get $1 slice no more. Now it's like $1.50. I don't know who they think they are. Martin, do you have any questions for me?
No, I just want to applaud you. And you started this podcast, I think you said in early September. So yeah. Congrats, my friend. I am rooting for you, and I just want to see you soar. I want to see you thrive. Continue fighting for freedom.
Yes, sir.
One thing I've learned is, because I've had people compare me to other podcasts, and it's like, it's not a competition. I look at it as collaboration, and clapping for others does not take away from personal success. So I just want to clap for you. It's cool just to see what you've done, and it's impressive, man. So just keep going. It motivates me. So I appreciate you. And no questions. I just want to give you your flowers.
Hey, bro, I appreciate that, man. Off we go into the wild.
Yeah, to the shores of Tripoli, right?
Yeah. No, thank you, man. Honestly, like, words of inspiration like that from somebody who I reached out. Well, I don't remember.
I reached out to you, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I was like, man, I'm super impressed. I was like, man, let me talk to this guy. Like, I want to.
But then still, like, looking into, like, you and what you're doing, it's one hand feeds the other, where I was like, this guy wants to talk to me. I was like, I want to talk to him. I was like, this is perfect. Like, we both have a 96 coming up. You got anything going on? So no, that like, words like that, everything you just said truly makes me wholesome, makes me happy, brings me down to earth, and lets me know, like, hey, like, everything you're doing it right. You're not going to get, I'm not going to turn into Leonardo DiCaprio or Joe Rogan overnight, but where I'm at right now, I'm very content with, and, practice makes perfect. If you go to the gym 1 day a week for a year, you're probably not going to see any progress. If you go for 3 days a week for a year, you'll probably see a little some, but if you go consistently, you're going to see results quicker.
Yeah, so that's well said.
Yeah, that's just kind of how I am with this. I invest my time into my family, probably priority, right? Because my wife and my family are, everything I live for. My flag, that's, I hate to say it, but that's probably my second priority. My mother and my father and my grandma come first. Sorry, America. Yeah. And then, my everyday life. So, keeping up that physical activity, keeping a clear mind, and then playing around on editing some videos and shit.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Awesome. Martin, One last thing. Anything you want to say to the people listening right now?
No, just the quotes that I just said, that clapping for others does not take away from your personal success.
Yep.
And, comparison, again, is a thief of joy. And that's something I've been saying for the past couple of years because I heard someone else say it. And that mindset is really, because if you're going to, if you're going to compare like yourself to another person, compare yourself to who you were 5 years ago. Right? Because then you're thinking like, damn, man, like I've come along. Then all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm proud of like what I've done. 5 years ago, me would have eaten that MRA. And I'm like, not today. Not today, Navy.
Yeah.
But, and then lastly, it's not everyone's going to like you. And this isn't to you specifically, right? It's just, but people, we want to be liked as humans. We have, but I think if you're doing something of note, if you're doing something right, people are going to talk about you, write about you, and sometimes hate on you, right? So just accept that, but become so good don't have it cost your friendships or anything like that, but become so good that even if someone doesn't like you, even if you're undesirable, you're so good that you're undeniable. So,
I like it.
Yeah, repeat myself.
Nah, you're good, Martin. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your kind words. I appreciate your wisdom.
Thanks,
and all
man.
of your past experiences, man. It's been nothing but a pleasure. I hope later in the future I get to have you on again and we can kind of recap and, see where we're both at in life then.
Yeah, for sure,
maybe
man.
You'll like Skyline Chili and maybe I'll like In-N-Out French fries. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, man.
All right, Freedom Empire. Until next time.
I just want to say that the views presented are those of the speaker and the guest do not necessarily represent the views of the Department of Defense or its components. Neither the Department of Defense or its components bears any responsibility for the accuracy, legality, or content of the views discussed on this podcast. Now, without further ado, let's get into this.